like to call to order the May 18th, 2020 meeting, Westchester Zoning Commission meeting. Mr. Dawson, roll call, please.
Mr. Hahn.
Here.
Mr. Murphy.
Here.
Mr. Whited.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. We've got some old business to attend to. We need to get approval of the February 24th, 2020 meeting minutes. Are there any changes to the meeting minutes?
Nope.
None?
No.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes
Sir.
for February 24th, 2020.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Dawson, roll call, please.
Mr. Hahn.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes.
Mr. Whited.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Excellent. We also have to approve a resolution. Resolution RFDP 0220A WCV, The Woods, from the February 24th meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolutions from February 24, 2020. Can you give me that number again?
RFDP 02-20A WCV.
That's the one.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Dawson, roll call.
Mr. Hahn.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes.
Mr. Whited.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Okay, we have approval of the minutes and the resolution. Okay, pardon me, give me 1 second. Okay, there is no unfinished business. New business, we have 4 new cases this evening. At this time, I'd like to swear in staff. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Excellent. And at this time, we need to swear in the applicant or in anyone that plans on giving testimony this evening. Mr. Dawson, would you do that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Geezus, do you, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Thank you.
Excellent. Our first case tonight is ZMA 02-20 Geezus property. Mr. Dawson, staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here we have a map showing the current zoning with the site highlighted in red. Site's located along the northwest corner of the I-75 and Tylersville Road interchange, approximately 530 feet east of Kingsgate Way. The site consists of 1.1 acres, having approximately 170 feet of frontage along the public roadway. Site is characterized as a developed lot consisting of a vacant restaurant. Here we have a few ground view pictures of the site. View to the north, as you can see the site as described. View to the west. The current comprehensive land use plan recommends the site as the highway services land use classification. The intent of this land use classification was allow for the more intense, auto-oriented commercial uses along the highway interchange. The applicant stated they are willing to develop the site consistent with the recommended B2 development standards. Here we see the definition of highway services. The zoning commission is to recommend approval with modifications, or denial of the submitted zoning map amendment. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Dawson?
I have none. None?
I have none.
Okay. Since there is none, we will have the applicant please come up. If you could please raise your right hand. I'm sorry.
Nope.
Don't do that.
Okay.
We already did that.
Okay.
All right. We need your name and address for the record.
Sure.
Sorry.
George Geezus, 9233 Pilgrim Court, up here in Westchester, Ohio, 45069.
Okay. Do you have anything additional you'd like to add?
No, it's pretty straightforward. I think was talking with these guys to get this changed to the B2, which will hopefully expand the our customer base to try to find something to get in there.
Yeah.
obviously, you probably didn't realize the Perkins is gone, so they're not coming back. And when we get the road done, I'd like to get somebody in there and primarily with drive-through or something, because that's pretty much the way things go now, so, yeah.
Right, so we can't do a drive-through as a B1.
That's my understanding,
Yeah,
correct?
right, so we got to get it to B2.
That's, yeah, so talking to these guys at the development office, that was the recommendation to go with.
Yep,
Yes, sir.
excellent.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
Very good. Any questions for the applicant?
I have none.
I have none.
Okay, great.
All right?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Just for the record, do I have to go through the opponents and proponents when I know no one's here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are there any proponents that would like to speak on behalf of this case? Are there any opponents that would like to speak against this case? Is there anyone with neutral information? Okay, seeing there is none, we will now close the public portion of our meeting and go into our deliberations.
I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah,
I'm fully in favor of it.
yeah.
It's vacant now, so an improvement would be nice.
Completely agree, Mr. Murphy. So, yeah, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just, all he's trying to do is make it more marketable with the drive-through accessibility, and, I think, yeah, it's, pretty straightforward. So, okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve, where's the case number? Case number is ZMA 02-20.
Based on staff comments and other agencies' recommendations?
Yes,
Okay.
of course, sorry.
No problem. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Question is, on the adoption of the motion that ZMA 02-20 Giza's property be approved by zoning commission based on staff comments and other agencies' recommendations. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay, Mr. Dawson, would you call roll?
Mr. Hahn,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes?
Mr. Wyden,
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Congratulations, passed 4-0. Okay,
seeing you, man.
very good.
Say hi to the family.
Okay, and we will now go into recess.
Bing.
I forgot to bring my book.
Okay, I'd like to call the Westchester Zoning Commission meeting back to order. Our second case this evening is FDP 0420A, New Life Church, Phase 1. Mr. Dawson, staff report, please.
Mr. Chairman, if I could swear in the applicant.
Oh, sorry. Please swear in.
Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson.
Here we have a aerial within the vicinity of the site. The site's highlighted with the dash yellow line, designating the overall commercial plan unit development district. And the applicant is proposing phase 1 of the site highlighted in red. The site's located along Cincinnati-Dayton Road, approximately 230 feet north of Cresthaven Avenue. The site now consists of 17 acres, having approximately 875 foot of frontage along Cincinnati-Dayton Road. Site is characterized as a valley between the two higher elevations of I-75 and Cincinnati-Dayton Road, which also slopes from north to south. Additionally, the site includes 2 vacant single-family dwellings along the Cincinnati-Dayton Road frontage, and the remaining majority of the site consisting of a house that has been demolished, along with the mature vegetation. We have a few ground view pictures of the site as it currently exists. You can see a view to the northwest. We have another view to the south. A view to the northwest. This would be along the northernmost access way. And as we move a little further into the south, you can see the valley in between the two ridges with another view to the west. This would be the focal point of the building as well, the proposed building. The Board of Trustees approved a zoning map amendment from R1 Suburban Residence District to the Commercial Plan Unit Development District and a preliminary plan on June 13th of 2017. This consolidated 4 lots for the construction of 3 buildings at a total of 96,345 square feet for the church campus on approximately 18 acres. The final development plan, as proposed, will consist of, for phase 1, will consist of a 23,394 square foot church with 598 seats. The applicant is proposing 328 parking spaces, where 75 are required per 8 seats, and 77% of open space will still be left over, where 15% is required. The final development plan is consistent with the previously approved preliminary plan by proposing the consolidation of the lots in the first phase for the church, a separate lot for a 12,500 square foot restaurant use located along the frontage was approved on a preliminary plan. However, the applicant has decided not to develop it within phase 1 or any subsequent phase as well, which decreases the previously approved intensity. The applicant has provided detailed floor plans that are consistent with the approved primary and secondary uses as well, which include staff offices, the auditorium, and additional rooms for education and community support. Additionally, the applicant has indicated the education use will be limited to Sunday school for differing age ranges, which is not intended as an elementary or a high school or university use. The applicant coordinated with the engineer's office on the road widening project along Cincinnati-Dayton Road in 2018 in order to dedicate right-of-way for proper access and deceleration lanes. Additionally, the applicant has illustrated an integrated circulation system and stubbed the drive aisles planned to provide access to the adjacent lot to the south and the vacant property to the west, which is planned for Phase 2 of the site. Hammerhead turnarounds have been illustrated within the parking areas along the building to provide proper fire access. Finally, the cross-access easements to the south are illustrated on the plans. However, a draft easement will need to be provided to staff for approval and recorded prior to a final inspection. The engineers have reviewed the site civil engineering plans and indicated all comments will need to be addressed at the permitting stage. Additionally, no dumpster or donation bins are being utilized at this time. Therefore, if they are needed later, the applicant will need to provide plans for staff approval prior to the installation and construction of the enclosures. The Township Connections Plan does not recommend pedestrian paths along the northern portion of this site where the highway service auto-oriented uses are recommended within the vicinity of the interstate. However, the applicant planned to have their facilities connected to the residents and businesses of Old Westchester. Therefore, the applicant has illustrated 5-foot sidewalks that will connect with the existing sidewalks along the corridor and future connections to Phase 2. The applicant has provided a photometrics study to ensure they are meeting the previous conditions. Finally, the applicant has provided a conceptual landscape plan. However, the plan does not address the previously approved requirement for adequate landscape screening along the south property line and landscape islands with tree plantings within the parking areas. The applicant is proposing 4 ground signs, which includes 3 monument entryway signs, a interstate highway sign along the north boundary, and a building sign. All signs are meeting the township zoning resolution in regard to area and height. However, setback dimensions for the ground signs were not illustrated on the plans. Therefore, consideration should be given to require all signs meet Article 20 at the permitting stage. The commission is to approve with modifications, or deny the submitted final development plan. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Dawson?
Mr. Dawson,
Can
did you?
everyone hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, yes.
Did you mention something about phasing early on as far
I
as?
did,
Can you talk to that?
sure. So Phase 1, as you can see on the plan here, would include what's colored. And then Phase 2 would be across the creek to the north toward I-75.
Okay.
So if we go back to the original preliminary plan, you can see what they're proposing for Phase 2 as well. So as you can see, it's the smaller building with a larger parking area to the north of the creek.
Okay. Thank you,
And
Mr.
that may adjust at Phase 2 final development plan stage because they have not decided to go with the restaurant in Phase 1. So as you can see, they proposed the restaurant building along the frontage.
Uh-huh.
So that building could increase in size when we get to the final.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Dawson?
I have none.
I do not.
Okay, I got one question. You gotta go back, oh, is that the landscape plan right there?
Yes.
Okay, I can't see it too well. So, are those trees around the outer perimeter of the parking lot? Oh, yeah, they are, because those are islands right there, right?
Yes, they have trees where the signage will be at the access ways.
Right. So, then,
Let me just get to the landscape. That was the
sure,
concept plan.
sure.
So this is how I'm advising the zoning commission to approve the landscape plan.
Yeah,
So-
why, okay, so there we go. Those circles, you're telling them they have to put in more plantings where those circles are?
Yeah, staff's advising the site would be more well-appointed if they provided some landscape islands to break up the asphalt.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, why would they have to break up the asphalt to put
Yeah.
trees in the center there? Why would they have to do that?
It's an advisement on just, the well, having a well-appointed site rather than just the site's, I believe, well over parked, 380, where I believe only 70 are required. So this wouldn't be a drastic reduction, but it would make the site look a lot better. It would provide shade for the people, walking up from where they park their cars as well.
Okay. Okay, any other questions for staff?
I have none.
I have no.
No? Okay, very good. Okay, would the applicant please come forward? You've been sworn in, so we just need your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Lonnie Snell, S-N-E-L-L. Address 6754 Old Station Drive, Westchester, Ohio.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to
Yeah,
the presentation?
Yeah, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I haven't had a chance to meet you, so just a few seconds of just who I am and how we've gotten to this point and where we're at. But so I'm Lonnie Snell, I'm the senior pastor of New Life Chapel. New Life Chapel was started several years ago with just a few of us that gathered together, technically 6 of us. New Life Chapel has been, God's been gracious to us. We now have over 3,000 families that call New Life Chapel home. We currently meet at Lakota West High School, have an incredible relationship with the administration and the school district, and just have always looked at us as an opportunity that we are here to be a blessing to the community that we're a part of and the impact. And so what has happened over the last several years with New Life is the community involvement has been incredible and has just been powerful. The families and the individuals that are part of our church are top notch. They're just wonderful people. We bought the land, obviously, as Mr. Dawson, we bought the land a few years ago and started this phase of working to get to this place. We are close to breaking ground. We're ready to go. This is obviously a major part of that step. And so what we're doing is we're asking you to approve the final PUD that we presented, so that we can start moving forward with the building permits and moving forward with the building of the land. I would like to address the staff considerations if you don't mind, or if that's,
That's perfectly
I am not a city planner, I'm not a city developer, I'm not an engineer. From our perspective, the tree lines and the buffers were things that we had planned on doing in the original final PUD when we did the final phases. Those are things that we had talked about that we are going to do. We just felt like in this season, in this moment, that we have well over a football-length field to a resident at that point, and that's something we will do. We plan on doing in the next phase, but just was wondering if we could bypass that in this phase because of the impact that it really, once it starts to impact the neighbors, we obviously understand that we will do that. But in this phase, we didn't think that it was that necessary. So we're dealing with an 80-foot drop of land. And so the phase 1 implications financially have been big for us. And so we're trying to be as wise as we can financially in this phase to get to the building. The other thing, but like I said, this is something that we will do. We would be willing to do in the next phase when we get to the place where it impacts the neighbors that are around us. The second thing is, as far as the additional parking, which Mr. Murphy raised the question, I think is a valid question, is in the original phase, we had a lot more parking. In this phase, we have actually shrunk the parking facility, our parking spaces. We have reduced the impervious cover as well in this original. We've eliminated a standalone drive. We have removed the cafe marketplace. And we went originally in our original plan was 30 trees. Actually, in this plan now, we have over 40 trees that are presented here. So we've actually increased that element. And so, once again, those were just the two conversations that we've had with the township, and they've been great and wonderful. Those were just our suggestions in this phase to approve what we presented at this time.
So you're saying, if I may, ask a question, you're saying you'd like to forego the extra trees in the parking lot, which just breaks up the big massive asphalt look, so you.
Yes, sir.
You want to do away with those completely?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And the buffer, you want to do with the next phase?
In the next phase, yes, sir.
Well, Mr.
Because,
White-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, Mr. Whitehead, I'm not sure if he's saying you want to get rid of them completely. You just want to delay them
So this,
from this phase.
in the parking lot, is the trees, the staff consideration part, trees. We want to eliminate those altogether, because in the original plan, the parking went sideways. This plan, the parking goes directly to the building. So just like Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever it is, we don't have it broken up along the way to the building. So, and that was our thought was, the original plan only had 30 trees. This plan, our plan now has well over 40 trees. So we've actually added trees to our PUD. But yes, in the parking lot is that we would remove those trees under the staff consideration trees. And then we would add the brim or the fence or a tree buffer, whatever the official
In
phrase is.
phase two,
In
once
the
you get
phase
closer
two.
down there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So, did you have anything else?
No,
you'd
sir,
like to add?
unless you had any
Okay,
more
great.
questions.
Do you have any questions for the applicant?
Do you have any idea the expense that would be
On the, what's that?
to put the trees in the parking lot?
The trees might, I'm speaking off cuff from discussions I've had. It's potentially to add those islands is about $15,000 an island, potentially. And once again, from my position as being a steward of people who are investing to get this thing built, you know, I'm just cautious of that, so.
Okay.
How many positions or islands was staff recommending? I don't remember.
Looks like 10.
Yeah,
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12,
so 150
almost
grand
14, yeah. Yes.
to put 10 of them in,
Yes,
and that
sir.
includes your tree and all that stuff. Tree.
And for the commission, I can clarify once the applicant's completed his presentation.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, I'm just curious, what's happening to the other two houses? Are those coming down that are sitting there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I was just curious.
Yes,
I see them when I go by.
yeah.
Uh,
I have no other question.
Jim, do you have anything?
No, I think Mr. Dawson's going to clarify some
Yeah.
things for me.
Okay, very good. The only questions I would have, you'd indicated 3,000 families. So when this is fully up, functional,
Yeah.
operational, and you've got 300 parking spaces, do you have enough?
So the strategy in all this is, once again, getting back to being fiscally responsible.
Uh-huh.
That we didn't want to build a facility that we couldn't afford, number
Right.
one. Number two is that we would run multiple services on the weekend, so people would have the access to the facility.
Phased in.
As it relates to church in this today, it is what it is, it's a dirty little secret. Those people who often attend your church called New Life Home maybe don't show up every weekend, but they show up, once a month. They show up special events and holidays and things
Sure.
like that. So they would still, if you were to talk to them and say, well, what church are you a part of? They would say New Life, but they show up, But
So-
those are people that we are in contact with. Those are people that we have relationships with as well,
Yeah.
so.
So, obviously, you're comfortable with 300. You think that's a good
What
number?
ours, yeah, because we would be able to run multiple services
Yeah,
through that experience,
right.
yeah.
Right. Okay.
That was the, even with adding some of the parking that we were able to add, those were two key factors for us, was the amount of parking space that we did have to accommodate the people on site.
Do you know, was a traffic study completed yeah,
I'd have to probably defer to Mr. Dawson. I thought all that work was already preliminary done, and
Sure.
all those discussions were had, and that's when
Sure.
the curb lanes were put in,
Sure.
The turn lane was put in and
Yeah,
those
right.
things like that.
Right.
And the discussions on entry point and exit points of the facility to make sure that it was done with reason. So people could get on the property and off the property in a timely manner.
Yeah, yeah. I guess, I see a lot of places of worship, from time to time, that, they'll have police.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah, we have
poli-
been discussing that as well, yes.
Have you?
Yes.
Is that something you'll probably
Oh,
end up doing?
100%, absolutely. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll probably be day one. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Would you
Yeah.
be amenable to like putting that into a resolution to do that as a part of a resolution? To like, I don't even know.
I don't know, I don't.
Yeah.
know
Mr.
what I
Mr.
wanna
Chairman,
commit to or
point of
don't
order,
commit to.
if I could.
Yeah.
The conditions that you're speaking of, along with the landscaping plan, were approved by the trustees. So that's the portion that I wanted to address after the applicant
Okay,
finishes.
all right. Well, we're not, okay, all right. Just curious.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, we'll work with whatever we need to work with, so.
right. Okay, all right. Any other questions for the applicant?
I have none.
Okay, very good.
Good, thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, at this time, are there any proponents that'd like to get up and speak on behalf of this case? Are there any opponents that would like to get up and speak against this case? Anyone with neutral information? We have no emails or any comments from public on this case, Mr. Dawson?
No. we do
Okay,
not.
very good. Then we will now close the public portion of our meeting, go into our deliberation. However, let's get a little clarification from Mr. Dawson on the parking, please.
So in addition to, giving the site, a better, it's more well-appointed, these efforts they do add to other factors. Engineering-wise, if these were uncurved islands, they could help with stormwater runoff, as well as what's called a heat island effect. So a large area that's paved in black asphalt tends to be a lot hotter than trees or grass. So it could have a cooling effect on the patrons of the site as well. But also, the trustees considered the case back in 2017. And with staff's advisement at that time from trustee resolution 20-2017, there were conditions on here for the south boundary and the landscape islands as well, so.
Well, it's not, okay, so they have landscape islands, Mr. Dawson, right? They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that go around the perimeter of the parking, don't they? Are those not islands?
They are.
Okay,
If you feel that's adequate,
so I guess my question is, I need clarification. Did the trustees say those specific 10 in the middle need to be there?
no, just adequate landscape islands
Just adequate landscape
and
islands?
adequate screening of the
Okay.
south property line for the residents to the south.
Okay, okay. Yeah, right, right. Okay. Any other questions for staff?
I have none.
It clarified it for me.
Clarifying it?
Did you want clarification on the traffic study?
What, not
So
really.
the traffic study was completed during the preliminary stage as well. The trustees also added conditions for certain events, certain holidays and events where there's added traffic and they're.
Oh, so it's already written in there?
Correct, yes.
All right, very good. We already have it. See that? We already have it. Okay, so, all right, very good.
Yeah, question for you. The trustees voted on adequate islands, correct?
Correct.
Subsequent to that, those ones in the center were kind of plugged in, right?
On staff's advisement, staff believes that that would be adequate landscape islands.
Is adequate enough for the ones that are surrounding? Is that adequate as well, you think? Would that be considered adequate? If we pulled those out in the center, the outside circle there, is that enough? Is that adequate? If we pulled those out
If you removed what they've proposed,
in the center, the 10 in the center,
10
if we
dots.
remove that, Would that still be adequate?
That's up to you.
Okay.
Staff feels that what I've proposed on this side would be adequate.
So it's about aesthetics and cooling and shading and just aesthetics and so forth.
Well, and stormwater management as well,
Oh,
you
yeah,
gotta
'cause
figure,
it's
they're on a slope where all that asphalt, we collect the rainwater and draining into that creek, which then goes down to the residents
What's
who are
your-
on that south boundary.
Those are flush like grates with a tree in the middle where,
It would just be an uncurbed island.
an island, right, where the water's going into it, okay. Yeah, it would catch water.
Okay.
I don't know enough about that in terms
I
of.
do. I'll be able to share some,
Okay.
I'll be happy to
Okay,
help you out with
Because I
that.
just don't know if that's,
And how do you feel about it?
yeah, I just don't know. I mean, if it's factually true.
We'll enter into our deliberations.
All right,
Yeah, I'll give you my opinion on that.
Okay.
I'm not a huge fan of islands at all. They're needed from the standpoint of aesthetics and that kind of thing. They do help break up lanes and that type of thing. But what they really do is, all they provide is a way for water to infiltrate underneath pavement and undermine the pavement. So your pavement life expectancy, dependent upon how much, pavement you put down, how much subbase you put down, is gonna be compromised when you have these islands, because what happens is water ends up infiltrating under the subbase and weakening the pavement. So, me personally, I look at this as an opportunity to say, no, I think they got plenty. What I did briefly go back and look at the plans, and I think there was a comment from the Butler County Engineer's Office, has reviewed the site's civil engineering plans and indicated all comments will need to be addressed at the permitting stage. Leads me to believe that, they probably didn't adequately show stormwater drainage for that parking lot, and they're gonna obviously have to put some catch basins in there. But, that's the whole purpose of the detention pond that they're gonna be putting in. It will handle all the stormwater. There won't be any issues with stormwater quality, because they have to meet that stormwater quality through the calculations and everything that they submit to the engineer's office.
So for us to approve without that information, we're a little blind. So in other words, if the Butler County Engineer's Office is saying that the engineering plans from a stormwater management for this site, if we don't have that to kind of say, oh, yeah, this has been addressed, then what staff tried to do was to introduce these islands to help with that dissipation of water.
No,
At least that's what I heard.
no, I don't think so. I think, I don't know, staff can maybe clarify that a little bit. But no, the engineer's office, there's no way that the engineer's office is gonna let is your engineer here? No.
But as Mr. Dawson can clarify, I mean, our choice one, our engineer has been working with Butler County and Mr. Dawson through this whole process. And
Right.
all of those things were brought up in conversations prior, but we're at the point now where we're ready to build, which means all those issues have already been addressed.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Well, the actual resolution says it will be addressed at the permitting stage. So it's not like,
Yeah, okay.
it's not like the Butler County Engineer has approved it yet. And so, I mean, if he had, it would say it here.
Okay.
do you agree with
Tim,
that?
do you have any,
Dawson?
has Butler County approved the plans?
No, I think all they've received at this time are the preliminary storm drainage. I don't
Correct.
think they have the detailed or
Correct.
Calculations and
Correct,
plans
because
yet.
they're not on these plans either. So, but those islands will have nothing to do with stormwater. And really, again, I'm gonna come back and say, the only thing they will do is undermine their pavement. They'll have pavement problems sooner than they probably want to.
Yeah.
And they're gonna have to spend more money to put them in. So, is it 50,000 an island? I don't know.
15,000.
15,
Oh, 15.
yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry, but I got this mask on, I can't hear it well. I can't hear that well. 15,000.
All right.
That's still
That's still
150,000.
high. That's still very high
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
I,
So-
if it's not required from a zoning standpoint, then one, I don't think we got a true position to stand on. So in essence, if it isn't required from a green space requirement percentage, then I think we have to say, okay, to allow this exception from what staff recommended is acceptable. But I still say, and this is a very dangerous situation, there's a large subdivision down the hill from there. If we don't make sure that that is properly done, then in essence, we're setting this thing up for a problem, which has happened in other locations within Westchester. So I need to,
Really?
yeah,
Mr.
Well,
Williams,
that's the-
if I could,
Yes,
my
please.
comment about the islands was to help on the retention of the water. It may lower the capacity of what they need to retain if they put those islands in there a little bit, but they're still gonna need to meet the county's
Right.
requirements for the
So whatever we
retention.
do is gonna be subject to county approval on the storm water, right?
I can't imagine that the
Yeah.
engineer's office is gonna let, I'll tell you right now, who told me? Was it Mark Sennett or somebody? May have been a homeowner that was back in there, back in the day, that their house right now
yeah,
floods.
that's right.
Because there is inadequate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when new land gets developed,
Mm-hmm.
those things get corrected.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, we
Yeah.
didn't see it in the final development plan.
Right.
And it should be here in the final development plan. So that's my issue. Like I said, you're approving it blindly.
Yeah,
If this is the final development plans, then it needs to be the final design drawings. So,
okay.
Do we,
Any other comments?
we need to move into deliberation, I guess, or?
Well, we're in deliberation.
Are we okay?
Yeah. What's your comments?
I'm concerned about the water. I think we're gonna throw a ton of water down on that subdivision. We gotta, so you gentlemen, since I'm fairly new to the board compared to you two, what's our alternative on how we deal with this? Do we delay this while we get what we need from the Butler County engineers?
Could you turn briefly and take a look at the slide up there
the
right now?
contour, there's a contour.
That's your development, that's your grading plan, right? So basically, what it's showing is that the entire site slopes from the, oh boy.
Right to the left.
north, yeah, from the lower right to the upper left, to the detention pond. And that detention pond will be designed by professional engineers
Right.
that will be able to calculate for the appropriate amount of water, and then be able to hold that water, and then drain that water off slowly
Right.
outside the other end based on,
Right.
based on storm calcs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I
So
don't.
what do you think we're missing in this to
We're
move?
just missing catch basins, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. 'cause-
There's
correct.
just pipeline,
It's
there's pipes that need to come in on the site and catch the water and drain it. It's not gonna all just be sheet flow to the,
So how do
to
we
the-
deal with that at our level, the catch basin?
Well,
I
I think
don't
we.
think we do.
Well, I mean, I think you're right, but I think we need to address it here. So just some language that basically says that the stormwater management plan, which isn't really developed yet, or not a part of this package, needs to basically be in place and approved by Butler County Engineers Office, just to add that language in there, so that then we can say Butler County is going to be basically the deciding factor.
Mr. Williams, if I could,
Yes.
I have that drafted as condition number 2.
Number 2?
Yep. Yep.
Yep, I missed it. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Dawson.
And then to all commission members, if you are reconsidering the landscape plan, there need to be a motion to amend condition 1.
Correct.
Yep,
Okay. Thank
okay.
you.
I would assume we're still, the buffer is a necessary thing, so he's proposing not doing it now because he is way up on the far end of that property. and not doing that buffer until he does phase two.
Yeah. So here's my question on that, right? So, so I hate to kind of dominate this, but it's kind of my alley here.
Let it go.
So we're the majority of that parking, I can't read that, I can go back to the grading plan. The majority of that parking is at what elevation? Just on an average? I can go to the plan.
I know there's a 20-foot drop in grade from the north property line to the parking lot.
No, I don't care about that grade. I care about the grades across the lot. So like the average grade across the lot is around 760, right across the middle of the lot. It's 760 feet in elevation. And that property line is going to be at 726.
It's about a
-ish.
10-foot drop.
You said 760.
Sounded
I'm
like
getting
40.
more like a 34-foot drop.
Yeah. From the center line elevation, you.
Basically, the center of the lot is 760. If I went to the far right of the lot, even go to the far left,
Yeah, 20 foot, 765 down to 745.
720,
Yeah.
726.
Yeah, 720.
So it's about 34 feet.
Well,
I made up the,
I think if we just, like you were saying, leave it with the engineer's office, we got it in the condition, because that's gonna be a heck of a design. That's 'cause, like today's water that we just collected over the last 5 hours of rain was significant. And so, it actually came out through Wilmington and through Butler County that this was a hazardous rain that can cause flooding conditions.
right.
So today, that detention would have probably been challenged.
I would
Would it
have to
probably been
disagree
what?
with that. Because we design, those typically get designed
For 100 or 50?
50,
Yeah,
50.
50?
Mm-hmm.
So but
What'd you say it was rated today?
he said typically that these detention ponds are rated
50-year
for 50-year, 50-year rains.
But have we already in numbers on how much rain we've had today? Did you say?
No, it's still,
But
it's
it's
still,
also-
calculated.
It's
so-
also based on, there's also spill overflows.
Right.
That would prevent mass flooding.
Right.
It just hit the creek, so there's a high spill that it would just start going out. So then what happens is the water won't meet stormwater quality, but in a 50-year, 100-year event, you don't really care about stormwater quality. You're caring about mass destruction of water,
Evacuation, yeah.
overflowing and
Right.
wiping out homes or whatever, right? So there's a spill overflow and that just goes out and it's not a problem. I guess what I was getting at when I was talking about the elevations, I think we had switched the topic to the buffer
Yeah,
along
40
the
feet.
southern side.
34?
So if we're 34 feet down, if we're, the backyards are gonna be 34 feet below the parking lot. I mean, I don't know
What
what.
kind of buffer are you gonna put in to block that view?
You're not.
You can't.
And so, I mean, I guess I don't want to try to change the resolution from not doing it, but, from a time constraint thing or a money constraint thing, is
Can we-
it going to be a big deal to wait until phase two? I don't know.
I don't see the visual impact, but I'm not sure. I would be fine with delaying the buffer until phase two. If we can amend, we have the ability to amend that, right?
Yeah, my only concern is when phase two is you may have 300 people at phase one for a long time before phase two.
Okay, fair enough. Good point, Mr. Dawson, good point. Good point. So can we say at the initiation of phase two or 5 years or 3 years after
That's good. Put a time
occupancy?
limit on it.
After occupancy, is that something you can live with? Like 3 years after, like, upon initiating phase two, or initiating phase two, you get to put the buffer in, or 3 years,
Whichever came first.
whatever comes first.
That'll spread your cost, push it off.
Mr. Chairman, if we could, you could call the applicant back to the podium.
Sure.
We're live
Sure.
casting. I just
Please,
want to make
please,
sure it's
yeah.
recorded.
Sure.
Yep, Lonnie, please come back up, thanks.
You know, I mean, it's not a hill, no pun intended, I'm gonna die on. You know, once again, you know, I guess if that's what you feel like you wanna do is wait a few years and we have to do it within the next 4 years, I guess that would make sense, you know? I guess if you go down there now, I mean, if we're debating it, if you go down there now, the one guy already wants to sell his property and change the zoning on it to make it what ours is, and then it's only one house, so I guess I would just say there's nothing there now, so. But I understand. I mean, I'm requesting for phase 2, but if you guys feel something different, I
Yeah.
understand
Well, Mr.
that.
Dawson brings up a fine point, is that phase 2 could be 2 years from now, it could be 22 years from now.
Yeah.
And that's where we don't want to get into a pinch by putting something in a resolution and by just saying, hey, when we start phase 2.
I see what you're
Because, I mean, you know, is it going to be 22? Probably not.
Sure.
But we would like to
Sure.
kind of
That
give
makes
you a
sense.
little bit of breathing room
Sure.
before you have to go start spending more money.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's fine.
You mentioned 4 years, you could be comfortable with 4 years?
I think 4 years I'd be okay with that. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, very good. All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
So where would you put that in the current?
I think on
Resolution.
item 1, adequate land, A?
Oh.
No,
A, I thought we would leave alone, and B, we would delete.
yep,
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
yep,
someone could make a motion to amend condition 1 to state, a detailed landscaping plan, plant schedule, basically item 1A, with the addition that will be installed with phase 2 or your specified time, and your specified, and/or your specified time.
yep,
I think that makes sense.
yep.
And as to Part B, it's interesting, I just went through this in my driveway. I had water going under my driveway, and it was washing it out, and it was weakening it, and you could tap it, and it did a hollow sound all over the place. It's a very interesting comment that Jim made about why it's not such a great idea.
Water's the root of all evil.
Yeah. I just spent
When
a
it
few
comes to
$1,000 bucks.
foundations
I just
and
spent a few
pavement.
$1,000 to fix it. So I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah.
The aesthetics is a nice thing. I never thought about so the only way to prevent that would be to make them curbed, which is gonna add more expense, right? And,
Well, you're no, you can't just curb it. You gotta curb it, and then you have to drain it. You have to tile drain it to prevent that water from going, it goes
Yeah.
in, and then it goes right to the path of least resistance, which is your subbase, and then it starts deteriorating.
Yeah, it
Or-
washes
Or
it
what
out.
it does is it gets in there and then it sits, and then through frost and freeze, then you start to weaken your pavement.
Yeah.
So what you would have to do is, you know, it's one of the biggest challenges I have with engineers is no one does it, because I understand there's an associated cost, but to do it right, you'd have to put basically under drains in all of your islands, and then drain that to the nearest catch basin, and that would prevent that from happening.
Yeah,
We're getting there, but we're not there yet, so,
yeah, I agree with your comment on,
Yeah.
having gone through what I just went through with my driveway.
okay,
So we're gonna delete 1B?
yes.
Okay.
And
And you're
then
gonna add the language to 1A?
I've got something along the lines of a detailed landscaping plan and planning schedule which illustrates screening elements along the southern property line during phase 2 or within 4 years, whichever is first, to include adequate quantity, size, and spacing of evergreen plants. Period. You good with that?
Sounds good to me.
I'm good,
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Okay. Is there any more discussion? Any more deliberation at this time? Okay, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve FDP 04-20-A, based on staff comments, other agency comments, and the amendment to item number 1, which shall read, 1A, a detailed landscaping plan and planning schedule which illustrates screening elements along the south property line during Phase 2 or 4 years, whichever is first, to include an adequate quantity, size, and spacing of evergreen plants, period. Item number B would be stricken from the resolution. So-
I second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. The question's on the adoption of the motion and the modification to FDP 0420A, New Life Church, Phase 1, be approved by zoning commission based on staff comments, other agencies' recommendations, and the modifications here tonight. Any further discussion?
Nope.
No?
Okay, Mr. Dawson, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Hahn?
Yes,
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Wyden?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
congratulations.
Yes, I'm looking
Case
forward to
passes.
seeing that building. That's gonna look really good there. Good luck with it.
So Chairman, are we adjourned?
No, we
We're
are
going straight to the next
15
meeting.
minutes behind schedule now.
Okay.
So our next case is ZMA 03-20, Casanelli's property, WCTC Building 8. Mr. Dawson, staff report, please. Oh,
Thank-
We need to swear somebody in.
you want to swear people in first?
Yes, if I could.
I'm sorry. Yep.
Please stand, raise your right hand. You are giving new testimony in this case. You swear that the testimony you give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief? Here we have a map of the current zoning with the site highlighted in red. The site's located along the north side of Union Center Boulevard, approximately 2,300 feet west of Princeton-Glendale Road. The site consists of approximately 24 acres, having frontage along Brake Drive. The site is characterized as an undeveloped lot lying within the floodplain. We have a couple ground view pictures of the site. Here is at the end of the cul-de-sac along Brake Drive with a view to the southwest. We can see the site's heavily vegetated currently. Another view to the west, this is along Union Center Boulevard. And another view to the northwest. The current comprehensive land use plan recommends the site as general industrial land use classification. The intent of the land use was to allow for the more intense industrial uses along the major road corridors. The applicant has stated they are willing to develop the site consistent with the recommended M2 development standards and the surrounding industrial buildings. The applicant was not required to, but did provide a preliminary site plan showing the layout and a landscape screening area along the east portion of the site. However, the applicant did not provide verification of the type, size, and spacing in order to properly screen the residents to the north. Additionally, there was a path connection, as you see highlighted in yellow, that North Point did provide with the industrial PUD to the north. But since it is the same applicant, I've gave them the option to work with staff. And if they feel that it's more feasible to make the connection through this site rather than the one that was required through the IPUD district. The zoning commission is to recommend approval approval with modifications, or deny the submitted zoning map. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Dawson. Any questions for staff?
I have none.
Okay,
I have none.
none? Mark?
So
Good.
they provided no plan for screening?
They did,
missed
they,
that?
they just didn't, they didn't provide any details on what types.
This,
And
this is just a zoning map amendment, so
Correct.
it's gonna have to come back for a preliminary plan and then a final development plan?
no, this will go to the trustees with your recommendation. If approved, they'll only need to meet the M2 development standards.
Which does contain those provisions.
No, it does not.
No, it does not.
It does not.
So this is your time to address the applicant on what they plan to
So
provide
we would have
for
to
that
amend
screening.
it to add the buffer.
No, they're willing to add the buffer, but you can discuss with them how they plan to screen that.
Or what the detail of the screen, okay.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Okay, no more questions for staff.
I have none.
So, okay, would the applicant please come forward? You've been sworn in, thank you. And so if you could just raise your right hand, I'm sorry, just provide your name and address for the record. Okay.
My name is Tim McElroy with North Point Development, 716 Hidden Glen Drive, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45230.
Okay, Tim, do you have any, anything you'd like to add in addition to Mr. Dawson's staff report? for us?
No, I mean, we've worked with Tim in the past on the first 7 buildings we've put up out there.
Yeah.
And, you know, we'll work with Tim and the staff on screening. There's a very little amount that really needs to be screened.
Right.
You know, 85% of that north property line for the Casanelli piece abuts our property already. It's just that last, I don't know, that's probably 150 feet, I would guess.
Does he have a laser up there, Mr. Dawson, that he can just point to that area?
It's the hatched area in the north.
Where it's tagged on.
You have to stay behind the podium because we can't hear you, Tim, sorry.
So that's the only.
Where, good, do that again? Yeah, right there, fine.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay,
Right now, there's already a natural buffer there.
Right.
We'll make an attempt to preserve that. If we don't, which may not be feasible with construction, we'll have to put a buffer back up.
yeah, and you're good with that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Cool, good deal. Okay, any, is that all you had?
No, I was just going to give a brief update.
Sure.
For the commission.
Sure.
There we go. He disappeared on me. I don't know if I'm allowed to touch this or not, so I don't want to, I'm happy to do it, but it's on another file. too.
He needs another screen.
Yeah. I'm okay with using it, I just don't know if I'm supposed to, so. Could you pull out that other file on the zip, or on the flash drive? On the bottom one? No, no, no. Up bottom? The bottom. Thank you. I just wanted to give a brief update, and thank Westchester Township for the cooperation so far on this project. It's been a great public-private partnership. We couldn't be happier with the park we've developed out there and with the relationship we have with the township and frankly with the tenant mix we have out there. Those are the first 4 buildings we've put up, and to date on those 4 buildings, we've leased about 820,000 feet and represents about 500 jobs. And some of these, I hope the township is as proud of them as we are, because General Electric went in there with their 3D printing additive division. That's a big win to keep them in the community and add to their number of jobs in the community. Another great one in the back corner is Fammeconica. They're an Italian company that makes very advanced machinery for folks like Kimberly-Clark and Procter & Gamble to produce their paper products, mainly on the feminine hygiene and baby care side. Lots of really good jobs, lots of very heavy engineering staff. Just adjacent to them is Aeroflex, who is a kind of an affiliate company of Pharmaconica, who is going to make a very revolutionary liquids packaging product that, you know, quite frankly, could put plastic bottles out of business someday. Pharmaconica is going to make the machines that Aeroflex is going to make their packaging with. Very interesting concept. It was created by Procter & Gamble. They sold it off to scale it up, still maintain an ownership in it, but pretty revolutionary product that they have there. So lots of other great tenants, but those are kind of the marquee ones for that phase, which is phase one. I'm going to go ahead and advance this to the next phase. Maybe. All right. I'm not familiar with what he's using to view these. Sorry, I'm making you get your steps in. Just page 2 of this, please. There's 3 pages here. Oh, jeez. I feel stupid. So this is phase 2 of our project, which is buildings 5, 6, and 7. That aerial's several weeks old now. We already have a couple of leases signed in that first building of the next 3, representing about 146,000 feet and 85 jobs. One of them was just signed late last week, that Expression Therapeutics. That is a biotech company out of Georgia who is doing genome therapy. Really a cutting edge company that, again, I hope Westchester is really proud to have them here. They're going to have about 50 jobs there, and my understanding, a lot of people at the PhD level. So great addition to the park and great addition to Westchester. And that's really all I had. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have, but I just wanted to take the time to thank the township for the cooperation so far.
Any questions?
No, I drove through that area there, and it's very impressive. I mean, you don't really get the full picture of it when you're driving through it. It's pretty impressive.
Thanks.
It's kind of hidden back there too, so it's like, wow, a lot of great jobs.
Yeah, we never thought we'd be where we're at today, where we're trying to buy Mr. Casanelli's property. So, you know, I'm happy that we're there and look forward to getting it done.
Yeah, it's a good-looking project, really looks good.
And
Thank
how
you.
many entrances are there to that facility?
How many what?
Entrances to the?
There's the new one on 747 that'll have, it's a temporary light right now, but the lead time on the new traffic signal poles is very, very long. So that'll
Are you
be
going,
put in here in the,
do you know do you know, Tim, if they're gonna have a turning lane there?
there is a turning lane there.
There will be,
There is.
off 747?
Out of the park, there's a turning lane. You're talking about in?
Mm-hmm.
That was not required by the county.
I mean, I know we can't talk about traffic, right, per se,
Right.
but it's gonna, turning left off 747, if you're coming southbound, turning left, there's no turn lane for all those vehicles. It's gonna be tough for a lot of those semis coming through. It's gonna be a big backup.
Coming southbound, you mean right?
I believe there's already a turn lane there.
It's not like an official turn lane, it's like, because I was checking it out, it's not like a turn lane with a signal that I'm aware of, or a specific lane that has an arrow turning left.
Are you talking northbound or southbound?
Right across from Jamie's, that landscape place.
When you'd
Yeah.
be coming
Yeah, you're coming,
southbound.
excuse me, you're coming north.
Yes.
So heading north and turning left into that
Oh, okay.
complex. There's no turning lane, and that is just, it's gonna be a nightmare. Because if the trucks can't turn left, if they don't have a dedicated, because you want to be able to get in and out quick.
Yeah.
Thought there
Because I was
a
sitting there
turning
looking
lane.
at that, I'm thinking, wow, the trucks, they had,
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's just not striped yet, but I can go back and take a look at
it's a
the,
pretty big
the-
deal.
the traffic plans. I'll get you an answer on that.
Jim, I'm sorry, what's your last name again?
McElroy, McElroy. Thought there was a turn lane there too.
It's not striped yet.
See somebody shaking his head back there.
It's there. It's there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Turning lane?
It's not striped yet, but there will be turn
With a
lane.
signal?
We're not done yet. We paved what we could last winter, going up to the winter, but due to ODOT standards, we couldn't do the final lift.
Yeah, I just
So
want it
that
for
would
you
be
guys,
nice.
so you can get people in, no, the drivers can get in and get out quick
Yeah.
and be efficient. It's good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Appreciate the update. Okay, are there any proponents that would like to come up and speak on behalf of this case? Are there any opponents that would like to speak against this case? Anyone with neutral information? Seeing there is none, we will now close the public portion of our meeting, go into our deliberation. So, thoughts?
Pretty straightforward to me. Go by there every day on my way to work. So it's been a great project. It's beautiful buildings, great companies. We need to do this.
I feel the same way. I have no issues with it. That little buffer area back there is really minuscule.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess the only thing is, do we have to put something in there in the resolution?
About the what, the screening?
The screening, just,
No, I just,
No?
It was in there.
I just allowed you to have a discussion with the
Got it.
applicant on what they plan to do.
got it.
Perfect,
Very good.
I'm good.
Okay,
Pretty clean.
how about a motion?
I make a motion that we approve case number ZMA 03-20 with all staff recommendations. And is that it?
Yep.
I second.
Pretty clean.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. The question is on the adoption of the motion of ZMA 03-20 Castanelli's property, WCTC Building 8, be approved by zoning commission based on staff comments and other agency recommendations. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Mr. Dawson, roll call?
Mr. Hahn,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes?
Mr. Whited,
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Congratulations, passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Best of luck. Okay. Earlier than 7:30, we're right on target. So we will go right into our final case this evening. ZMA 04-20, Brate 2 Republic Wire. Mr. Dawson, staff report, please.
If I could, swear in all applicants.
Yep, sorry.
And you
Kinda
wanna give the
forget.
testimony in this case, please stand and raise your right hand, please. Do you swear that the testimony you give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief? Do. Thank you. Okay, yeah. Well, no, we already sworn you in.
Okay, now we can get on to the staff report. Mr. Dawson, thank you.
Here we have a site aerial within the vicinity of the site. The site is highlighted in red. Site's located along Princeton-Glendale Road, approximately 420 feet south of Smith Road. Site consists of 15.2 acres, having approximately 825 feet of frontage along Princeton-Glendale Road. The site is characterized as flat and vacant, which consists of a majority being agricultural field and containing a single-family dwelling and a portion of the Mill Creek. We have a couple ground view pictures of the site. Oh, as we just discussed, the turn lane, northbound turn lane.
Thank you.
You can see access to the bridge here with the view to the northwest. This is along Brate Drive with a view to the northeast and a view to the northwest. And additionally, a view along the frontage where the portion of the Mill Creek is to the north, and then along the north property line to the south. The 2004 and 2013 comprehensive land use, this is the current zoning map amendment, which is currently A1 agricultural district with the surrounding industrial PUD, general industrial, and light industrial to the south. The comprehensive land use plan originally recommended the site as office, light industrial, and extended the community mixed-use classification to the south along the frontage for further general retail uses. The applicant is proposing a preliminary plan which maintains consistency with their request for the office light industrial land use by connecting access ways and internal street networks along the newly constructed Bright Drive and coordinating architectural design features and materials with the overall campus. Additionally, they are proposing larger window features into the design along the frontage that gives more of an office building appearance, which may be the case that the office use portion is located there. Furthermore, the building height will be consistent with 30 to 40-foot requirement for commercial buildings, compatible with the adjacent two-story apartment buildings, and a higher degree of landscaping is proposed throughout the site to include enhanced screening of the residential district. The Land Use Planning Committee reviewed the plans via video conference on May 6 in order to consider an amendment to extending the office light industrial land use classification throughout the site. Hearing all considerations from staff, the committee determined an amendment to the proposed land use as described for the site would maintain the original intent to maintain the overall commercial to residential use ratio throughout the township and would also be compatible and consistent with the surrounding character. Therefore, the committee passed the motion 5-0. As you can see, the applicant is proposing a 400,000 square foot office light industrial building. The applicant's proposing 80 parking spaces where 133 are required and providing 19.7% open space where 15% is required. In addition to the Planning Commission's recommendation, the applicant will be required to meet all county, state, and national stormwater discharge regulations, comply with county flood damage prevention regulations, and any drilled wells or private septic systems will need to be properly abandoned, and all permits pertaining to those systems obtained from the county health department prior to the work. Additionally, the applicant's civil and architectural plans will need to meet all state, county, and township requirements at the final development plan stage. The Ohio Department of Transportation has stated the applicant will need to obtain approval of a variance for the emergency access along State Route 747, which was required by the fire department. Here we can see highlighted along the south portion of the property is the parking provided. Floor plans have not been provided at this preliminary stage. However, if we only calculate 400,000 square foot use as warehouse at one parking space per 3,000 square feet, the applicant is required to provide 133 parking spaces and is only providing 80. This requirement only increases for those floor plans that may show office use within the building as well. Therefore, consideration should be given to approve a parking reduction in lieu of public facility and landscape requirements that requires additional parking along the portion of the fire truck access lane along the east side of the building, or require the applicant to provide an off-site shared parking easement for agreement for additional parking that would meet the requirement. In order to realize a portion of the plan to connect a multi-purpose path from Smith Road to the existing and future path that will be constructed along 747 to Union Center Boulevard, consideration should be given to require a public use easement and the construction of the path that would be consistent with the existing path to the south, which could meander and vary in width from 8 to 6 feet from the easternmost access way along Bright Drive and stub to the north property line. The proposed landscaping plan illustrates adequate screening, street trees, and building perimeter landscaping to ensure that it's a well-appointed site. Although preliminary sign type and locations were not provided at this time, considerations can be given to reduce any detrimental impacts to the adjacent residents by restricting the display area, locations, and illumination of any building signage, in addition to the Township Zoning Resolutions, Articles 10 and 23. Any further considerations for signage, which is not proposed in accordance with the Township Zoning Resolution, should be given at the final development plan stage. The zoning commission is to recommend approval with modifications, or denial of the zoning map amendment and preliminary development plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions for Mr. Dawson?
So are the two major issues, not major issues, but parking, that's one, right?
Correct.
And the other one is the sidewalk.
Correct.
And is there a cost on the sidewalk?
There will be an associated cost of the sidewalk with all developments.
So, you're gonna have to go through the parking. I'm not quite sure I get what's going on here.
So,
I understand 133 is what's required based on calcs, and they're proposing 80.
correct.
But what are you talking about? The requirement only increases for those floor plans that may show office as well, therefore consideration should be given to approve a parking reduction in lieu of public facility.
So,
What does that mean?
right now, he's not meeting his requirement for at least 133, which would be calculated if we took that 400,000 square foot of a building and only said that it was office warehouse, or warehouse distribution. If he shows floor plans at a final development plan stage, and he adds floor area that's office as well, which I assume that he's planning to do, then that only increases because the ratio goes up for office. So it goes, for that section that's warehouse, 1 per 3,000, but that section that's office then goes 1 per 400. So he's
Right.
gonna need more than 133. So he's gonna need a drastic reduction, approval of the reduction in parking. Considering that, yes, he is providing a fire access lane, and he will be required to provide the connections path with the, the additional landscaping throughout the site. And he could provide, you could condition that he provide an off-site shared parking agreement within that industrial campus. Because I'm pretty sure that the rest of that industrial campus is overparked, and that he could get a private agreement.
But if he can't, he'd be stuck, if that's the way we conditioned it, right? If we conditioned it that way, and he wasn't able to get that easement or agreement.
You would either have to allow for the reduction in parking,
Right,
or you would have to require the easement.
addition, yeah.
Can we just, wait a second, hold on a second. This is a zoning map amendment. It's a zoning map amendment to go from A1 to a PUD.
Correct.
So he's gonna be back in front of us. Can we just,
He's going to be back in front of you at the final development plan stage, but you're giving a recommendation to the trustees. So the trustees will have to legislate what he's required to do when he comes back to you.
I'm still confused with the one sentence, if I may, forgive me, where it says, therefore, consideration should be given to approve a parking reduction in lieu of public facility
Right.
and landscape requirements that requires additional parking. I'm not understanding, I'm sorry. So we're saying we ought to consider it, even though if there's office space in there, it's gonna bump the numbers even higher, but we should consider it in lieu of.
You can consider granting a parking reduction. It's in a PUD, so we allow flexibility within a PUD.
Yeah. So have you had conversation with the applicant regarding these conditions?
I have.
And is the applicant accepting of these conditions?
The applicant, I don't believe is fully accepting, and I'll allow him to speak for himself.
Sure. I just wanted to confirm. Okay.
okay, any other questions for staff?
I have none.
Okay, then at this time, would the applicant please come forward We understand that you've been sworn in, so you just need to provide us with your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, gentlemen. First of all,
I need your name and address for the record, thanks.
I want to make one statement on the
I'm sorry, but I have to
applicant.
get your name and address for the record. and
Okay,
then you
it's
can-
Ron Rosenbeck,
And address.
8662 Indian Ridge Drive, Westchester.
Thank you. Thank you. Please proceed.
The official applicant is 4R Investments LLC.
Uh-huh.
4R Investments presently owns our 400,000 square foot building on Union Center Drive.
Uh-huh.
And this is an additional building that we're putting in, excuse me, additional building that we're putting in for distribution. We presently have light industrial and distribution over on Union Center Drive. So what we're doing is moving our warehouse facilities to this facility. And we currently have 40 people on the, in the shipping department right now on first shift. And we'll be having a second shift, but there's only going to be 20 people on second shift. Our intentions are, and if you would see our facility, we manufacture large reels of copper wire, and we have 20-foot racking system in the facility for our smaller wire. So that's why we're requesting the reduction to 80 spaces, is because we have a lot of room where we have general storage and some what we call our cutting machines to cut wire to different lengths, which takes up some probably about 20,000 square feet. So as far as the reduction, that's why we, typically don't have a lot of people next to each other in the facility. It's just large general storage. We've been out here, for those that don't know Republic Wire, we've been out here since 1994. In fact, I remember coming out here and everybody telling me, "This is nothing but cornfields, what are you doing?" You're out, I think I was the third building out here originally. And, but I want to thank Westchester for everything that you have done for us in helping us grow over the years. Because without your assistance, when I first started out, I don't think, because Dick Alderson wasn't going to give his land away when I first bought it from him. But no, we've enjoyed our relationship with Westchester, and we want to continue with it. And we found this piece of property, which, as you can see, our building is very similar to the ones that North Point is currently putting in out there. And our office would be to the, if you might not be able to see it, but it's the second picture on the bottom, the one on the right. It kind of extends out a little bit, but it's all glass frontage. And then we have glass frontage across the front of the building in 2 or 3 different areas. But it's very similar to what is out there right now that North Point has put up. And it would be, they would be to the south and to the west of us. So,
Is your intention to put office space into this location?
yes,
How much square footage?
probably about 15 to 20,000 square feet.
Of
It's not
office
gonna be-
space?
Please?
Of office?
Yes. And then the remainder would be general warehousing, distribution.
And the number of employees that would be in that office space would be where, in what range?
Well, we currently only have 15 people in our office.
Right.
So with that being said, we probably would have maybe 20 to 25 people I mean, who knows down the road, but that would be the most we would definitely have, you know, even if we expanded in that facility.
So I'm seeing 5% of the building could be office space, 400,000 total, 15 to 20. I've been in Ron's building is where he's at now, so I'm aware of that system you've got, which uses a lot of space to accomplish those wires. So it's not like there's a lot of people there. In the building you're going into, is that all storage, or will that be that manufacturing spooling of the wire like you have in your old building?
No manufacturing is intended there.
Just strictly storage?
It's storage, yes.
Okay.
That's our main reason. When I added on in 2013, 200,000 square feet at the end of Union Center Drive there,
Right.
that was all distribution. Well, that's all full now, so what we have to do is we're moving that to this new facility.
Yeah, it makes sense. And with storage, you're not going to have that many people in there with all the stuff there. You're just moving product in and out, so far less intense labor.
But the zoning, I would think, the iPod would allow for both, right?
I'll say that again.
The zoning change would allow for both.
Office or manufacturing and storage? Well, actually, it's,
Right?
I think that's correct. Is that correct, Mr. Dawson?
Yes.
No, the only permitted uses would be the light industrial uses, so no manufacturing.
No manufacturing.
Condition number 1, drafted, allows for O1 and M1, Articles 18.021 and 24.027, which does not consist of manufacturing. M2 is your general industrial, which allows for the manufacturing.
I see.
This is office and distribution.
Correct. Office, light industrial.
And light industrial is distribution,
Yes,
warehousing,
yes,
and that's it?
correct.
So I assume that's addressing a concern of would they convert any of it over to manufacturing at some point? So they wouldn't be allowed to,
Which means is the parking
would
is
increase.
possibly adequate.
Yeah. Right, is that what you meant? Yeah, if they had manufacturing.
Let's maintain our course here. Do we have any other questions for the
Oh,
applicant
sorry
at
about
this
that, we
point?
got off course there.
Yeah. So, do you have anything else you need to add, or would like to add?
Miguel Smith Puncheon, this is Dave Clark. He designed the building and, you know, that may not be the final rendition, but it's going to be very similar to that. We are putting up a barrier to the north along the backs, you know, where the apartments are. So there'll be a barrier there with pine trees for, you know, between us and that area. Very similar to what North Point's doing.
Ron, before you step away, Mr. Dawson said something about a few items you may not be in agreement with. Could you point out anything in these items that would be a point of contention, if not all of them? I don't know.
No, I'm laughing because Tim and I had a little discussion on this along with Dave. That proposal for that walkway coming through. I'm just curious, I mean, it goes around the building and then down Brait Drive, and then it's supposed to come back across Brait Drive and somehow get to the other side of the creek, from what I understand, to go along the roadway, 747. So I was driving out there and looking at it. I think that'd be very dangerous unless you're gonna put up barriers along there, because if a car or a truck got off, I mean, there's one area, there's not a lot of room to put a sidewalk away from the road.
So it'd be right on the curb?
Well, I'm not gonna say it would be right on the curb, but it would be very close. And my question to Dave was, or to Tim, and I asked Dave too, but was that if we're putting the sidewalk in, is the township pay for the sidewalk and including the maintenance of the sidewalk and also the liability if somebody gets hurt on the sidewalk?
And what did he say?
It was kind of left open, but he's, I think his answer was that I'm responsible for the sidewalk, including the maintenance. I think you checked with your,
Correct.
but if I'm in charge of the sidewalk, and my question would be, does it have to be 8 feet wide, number one? You know, I mean, a normal sidewalk is what, maybe 3 foot wide, 3 to 4 foot?
5 feet.
And the second thing is, you know, it's coming right in front of our office, number one, or that's another thing. And also, if I'm in charge, if I have to do the maintenance on it, I prefer to do asphalt rather than concrete. Because I could bring, I think as Tim pointed out, I could bring the first portion would come down the that asphalt drive I'm putting in for the fire department. And then I could extend it down, maybe break it away from the parking area and go around it. So that way they're not walking or riding bikes across our parking lot.
Yeah, I'll speak to that with the zoning commission.
Okay. But I guess there's a sidewalk, I know there's a sidewalk on the other side of Brake Drive, but I didn't know how they were gonna get back across the bridge, unless you were gonna have a walkway across the bridge to get to the other side.
I'll discuss it.
Okay.
Is there anything else other than that?
Yeah, that was the only thing,
Okay.
In the parking,
In the park.
and the parking.
yeah. Okay. All right, very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now like to ask anyone that would like to come up and speak on behalf of this case. Is there anyone that'd like to come up and speak against this case? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
Tim McElroy, North Point Development, 716 Hidden Run Drive. I'm not speaking against or in favor of the project. Congratulations on your success. Looks like a great project. It's not what we thought was going to go there when we developed there, so be it. That's not my decision to make. Much like you talked about stormwater in your first case tonight, there are some issues with this site that needed to be pointed out. This isn't the most current grading plan. We had to do some grading for the bridge and on the Brates farm for the bridge and for the creek. That building is way too close to the creek. There's pavement that is over the edge of the creek. There's not enough room to get a sidewalk in with a building and the creek. So I just want to point that out for the record.
Sure.
Stormwater has a right to flow through our storm system because it already flowed that way, but they're discharging a pipe across our property line. That is not okay. That is not legal. So I just want to make sure that the commission understands that
What did you just say? I didn't hear the last part of what you just said.
the storm flows through our property, which is okay because it already flowed that way. Mother
Right.
Nature flowed the water through our property originally, so it
Right.
can continue doing so. There's a storm pipe that crosses our property line into our storm system. That is not legal to do.
It's there now?
No, they're proposing
It's
to do.
proposed?
Yeah.
Right. Have
Yeah.
they offered to entertain an easement?
I found out about this in a roundabout sort of way.
Yeah, right,
When one of our people, when Matt was up at the Butler County zoning hearing last week.
right.
It's the only reason we knew about it. But
Gotcha.
Again, I'm not speaking against your project. I just want to make sure that these things are worked out.
Sure.
And I think there's some issues up in that corner that, you know,
Sure.
for the owner of this proposed project, I need to be aware that
Right,
there are some very limiting constraints up there that,
right.
So are you saying that you would not, the owners would not be agreeable to that pipe dumping into your
no.
retention?
We have to let the stormwater flow through our storm system.
Okay,
It could go to the creek as well, but we can't take that right away from them because the water already flows there.
Yeah.
They can't pipe it physically across the property line. on
Unless
our
they have an
site.
easement.
It can flow into it, and I know that seems like a technicality, but it can't a pipe can't run across our property line, okay?
Okay.
More concerning is up around the southeast corner. There's a lot of pinch points up there that, maybe this will all get flushed out in engineering, but I wanted the commission to know about it now, okay? I like the project. Again, I'm not speaking against it. I just want to make sure this is known, okay?
Should we bring his engineer up and quiz him about these things or not?
Yeah, sure. We're in the middle of, comment period, so that's fine. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments.
Dave Clark with McGill Smith Puncheon, 3700 Park 42 Drive, Suite 190B, Cincinnati 45241. In regards to the southeast corner being a pinch point, we absolutely acknowledge that based on the existing grades, that when you throw the yellow demarc line of the path in there, it gets tight. And I would agree with the comments that it's going to be difficult to get grading to work through. If you go out there and look what's now, when you look over the edge of the bridge there, it's like a deep swale that's been graded to a berm. There's a large amount of riprap through there, and there's a couple storm drains that are through. So when we started engineering a month and a half ago, we didn't have the path in mind. And at one point we were told that the path that we didn't need to have as a consideration. And then it was after our discussion with the land use that it kind of came back. So when you're looking at where that berm is there, you can see right in the middle, just past the berm, where that storm grate is. So where that yellow path line is, you're basically coming right across where all that riprap is. So it would be, I mean, there'd be if that is a Republic wire or a for our investments borne cost, it's not simply just throwing an asphalt or a concrete path along the field. There would be significant extra grading to push everything towards the creek, and obviously we don't want to get into anything with the creek. So to your point, absolutely we do acknowledge that that's a pinch point. For us, from the preliminary development standpoint, what we're looking for is to give Ron the most value of what the site can be used for from a building and a warehousing standpoint. As you mentioned, we've expanded his current facility several times, and 6 months after he expands, he's filled it up. So finding usable square footage in the township that's not in a floodplain has always been a challenge. So for us, this was an exercise in just seeing how much usable square footage we can get. We acknowledged, and also we met with the fire department to know that we've got to get a fire lane around the building, so we know we're losing some square footage there. And we also know there's some screening considerations. And then, again, to the point with the stormwater, how we get off-site, whether we can run everything into the creek or use the existing stormwater that drains to the north and west and then back down to the Mill Creek. I can discuss that with Tim and also my civil engineer on it to see how we're actually outfalling into that existing storm pond there. We do have a underground storage system for the stormwater detention, in order to make the site work for us. It's necessary just to not have a large volume of pond. But we can absolutely look at and explore ways that we can not be piping across property lines. But again, just going back to the comments about the pinch points, we absolutely acknowledge that. And when Ron was pointing it out, I didn't want to say, but even as you come down that pinch and then you head west, our fear was that people could be, coming along the bike path or the walk path and then just actually cutting through their parking lot, and that's an even greater issue, that you have somebody coming to work, parking there, that could, somebody cuts across a bike there, or cuts across the parking lot on a bike or a walk. It's certainly not a situation that we would want. So I started looking at just this past week, since we had our call with the land use committee, on how we can basically, if the path has to come through there, how we can squeeze it in and also try to come up to Brate prior to coming as far down, if it's even possible, based on grading. But I don't know that is.
And what's the land use committee said to you about that? Then?
We actually did not discuss that with the land use committee.
Got it. Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to add? Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it. I believe we were in the middle of like proponents and opponents, I think I was at. Is there anyone with neutral information that'd like to get up and speak about this case? I hate to do this to you, Mr. Rosenbeck. Could you please come back to the podium for just one question, please? Before we close the public portion of the meeting, sorry. I guess the question that kind of just came up to me is this on a super fast track for you? I mean, you need this thing up, you need it now, you need it like tomorrow kind of a thing? Or, I mean, if, 30 days kind of a thing?
I'm smiling because I don't know. Our intentions were originally to probably start construction later this year or first quarter of next year.
Okay.
Or second quarter.
Right,
But now with the economy and with everything going on, while you're wearing that mask and
Yeah.
all these things that we're going through right now,
I'm wearing it so you don't recognize me.
so
I'm sorry.
my whole point there is, we just, at this point, it's not on a fast track because of the economy and what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, right. Okay, perfect, thank you, I appreciate that. So, I mean, like, it could be second quarter next year.
Yeah, it's probably gonna go into next year, just looking at things right now. Because we're heavy into construction and, that's our main source of residential, commercial, industrial, construction. So a lot of that's been closed down. We're seeing a lot of interest, on big projects going in, across the country, but, we just don't know, if the
Right.
economy goes south and a lot of those jobs can be tabled,
Got it.
so.
Okay. All right, very good, very good. I just wanted to make sure where you stood. I didn't want any decisions made up here during deliberations so that would impinge a schedule for you. So that's why I was asking.
I'm still on this supposed walking path. I'm still kind of curious. Like I said, I mean, I know the intentions of the township, but sometimes, supposedly there's going to be people coming from Beckett Ridge, walking all the way down and coming across our property and then going down to almost walking down to the bike path by the Mill Creek. I'm not too sure. I know what the intention of the township is and what you're trying to do, but, I'm just wondering with the creek where it is and everything, if it's practical.
Right.
And then, of course, the cost. So,
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. Appreciate it. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay, we will close the public portion of our meeting. That was kind of a loaded question, if you guys didn't understand that, right? To me, I would like to maybe have another, open up a little conversation with staff briefly.
Please.
Okay, so I guess, Mr. Dawson, my biggest question that I'm shaking my head at here is that you initially had said that we have to make a decision tonight that's gonna go to the trustees. We have to make a recommendation tonight that's gonna go to the trustees for approval, but we don't have anything, other than a pretty conceptual 4-page set of plans. There's really not that much to sink our teeth into.
Is this pertaining to the bike path?
Yeah, but, it pertains to bike path, pertains to parking. I mean, we don't even know whether he's gonna have, he's guessed at 15 to 20,000 square feet of office space, which you said then goes to 3 spots for every 1,000? Is that correct?
Yes, if you think it's too much of an ask to grant the reduction for what he's asking, right? At this point, it would be, less than or, he's 50 short of what he's required just for the warehouse. And
Correct.
he stated he is gonna add 20,000 square foot of office, which would bump it up to what's required at 183 parking spaces, so.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure that we give our trustees the right, enough information to make an informed decision so that, to make their life easier. That's, I think, the purpose of our job.
You could recommend that he provide the off-site easement agreement, shared parking easement agreement.
But until it's engineered, we don't know. In other words,
Well, the preliminary plan's gonna show you what his footprint is and his parking area. That's not gonna change unless he reduces
it will change. It
Unless
will
he
change.
reduces it.
I know it will change. And then the whole, I've seen it change. Maybe not by a lot, but it could change. And then again, we don't know how much office space he's gonna have. So, the reason why I asked the applicant to come back up is that if we had to kick this can down the road for 30 days or whatever, for them to get, for their engineers, MSP, the architect/engineer, to get further along with some design plans that we could make a better, more informed decision. I'm just kind of wondering if we should do that. I mean, because we can, I know now he's back there scratching his neck, so that means he's kind of uncomfortable with that position. I mean, I think and honestly, I think it would be best for everyone, and the trustees, the applicant, us, everybody, but, I mean, he may want to come up and speak again against that.
I agree.
That's-
I agree. There's a number of issues. I mean, it could give them more time to get the drainage easements in place. It could give them more time to think about the underground vaults rather than a retaining pond, where this path is supposed to go in. It could give them more time to think about, a reduction in the building so they're picking up their parking. So, yeah, I agree.
Not at this point. We can bring you back up, but we're out of public comment at this point. I don't know, I think I've got enough from staffs. You want to head into deliberations for a bit, or?
Yep, sure can.
Yeah, okay, all right. So, I mean, what are you guys thinking?
I'm kind of thinking the same thing. Didn't it come up earlier that they talked about that wasn't the final, that isn't like the current plan? With how they have the new entryway there?
I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, if you get further down the road with engineering plans, right? And then there's a definitive, hey, man, we can't get this bike path in, right? Then, you know what? Maybe we have to make an amendment not to put the bike path in. But if we have to make a decision today that the bike path has to go in, and it has to be concrete, or we can change it to asphalt, it has to be 8 feet wide, I'm not, or can we reduce it to 4 feet or whatever?
And I'm allowing that flexibility. I'm allowing varying widths, and they can meander the path through
But
utilities.
we don't know what we need. That's my point. Is that
Correct.
we're trying to make decisions here based on something that we don't have any clue if it'll even work. But yet, then this case goes on to the trustees, and they approve it, and he's stuck building a bike path that's impossible to design. That's the thing that I'm concerned about.
But aren't we just recommending the zoning map amendment?
No, that according to Mr. Dawson.
No.
We-
This
So-
is for an industrial PUD, which contains the preliminary plan as well.
I mean, I'm trying to do the right thing for everyone here.
If
in
that, if
my
that's the
thought
case,
process.
then you're right, it needs to be tabled. I mean, if it was just a zoning map amendment, then we could move that forward. But if we can't, if it's actually tied to this concept, because based off what we just discussed, the building has to get smaller. It's as simple as that, for this to work. So, I mean, unless they do, unless
Or
there's
he
other.
comes back and says, I've entered into a parking agreement so that I
Correct.
don't have to.
That's
Or
correct.
something.
Something.
Or, you know, I mean, I don't know, but it kind of just seems like there's so much out here right now.
I just
and that
don't
we're gonna all we're gonna do is hot potato this and throw it into our trustees' laps to
Well-
have them make a decision without having concrete information. I just don't think it's fair to our trustees. It's kind of where I am. I don't know.
So if there had not been a concept, could we have approved just the zoning map amendment?
No,
So it had to be a concept.
you have to approve the recommend approval at this point of the preliminary plan.
But the preliminary can change.
No,
It cannot change because it won't work.
this is what they're proposing. There's no time for revision on this. So my advisement to the zoning commission is you can't make a motion for them to amend their plan. Maybe grant a continuance of the case.
You could, if the applicant agrees, we can continue it for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
Or you guys could approve the plan with, subject to modifications. What Mr. Williams is saying is correct, it's just a recommendation. So it'll go up to the trustees for final approval and they might modify it further.
Right. But see, I guess my point is that they're gonna, you know, I'm trying to make sure that our trustees get good information that they can actually make a decision on. And what I'm seeing here is that they are not gonna be able to do that. I don't think they'll be able to do that. So why would we, they rely on us to make sure that they have good information, then let's get them some good information. I don't know.
The applicant's already said he's not in the rush that he would have been under the circumstances, so 30 days doesn't seem extreme. Do we want to call the applicant back up and ask him if he's
I
in
don't know.
agreement with that?
Is the
I think
engineering
we
far
should.
enough along that in 30 days, they're gonna have some, you know, some plans?
Also, I didn't think to ask the applicant if they've investigated a parking agreement with any of the other tenants. That would be a huge piece of information if they've got, and I didn't think to ask that. Because if I'm hearing the numbers correctly, we're gonna be 100 spots short with 20,000 office, we're gonna be 100 parking spots short. So you gotta come up with some solution on that,
Yeah, that's right,
or how we're gonna deal with it, one of the two. So
that's right.
we could ask the applicant that when he comes up, if they've talked to any of the surrounding people yet.
And I mean, you know, I don't know, it's not my business, but I mean, you know, 20, I think I heard 20 people in office, right?
20 to 25.
20 to 25, that's almost 1,000 square feet per person in the office. I mean, that seems a little high. So is it really only 20 people, or is it gonna end up
Well,
being 40?
I think
But
he said he
whatever,
had
said 20.
existing, right now, he had existing 20,
Mm-hmm.
right? And with the new office space, I assume now would be 45.
Right, yeah, right, with the office at another location, right?
Yeah,
20 here.
Yeah.
yeah.
But still 20,000 square feet for 20 people.
Yeah.
Is a lot of space.
That's a lot of space.
So, I mean, I don't know. It is what it is, but
Yeah.
it's fine. That's kind
I
of
think
why
we should call the applicant up and
Yeah.
see if he's agreeable to a 30-day
I agree.
extension, and also to find out whether they've entertained or investigated getting a parking agreement with somebody.
no
I agree.
problem. No problem. Mr. Rosenbeck, would you entertain coming back up again? Yeah, you'd probably want to come up also. Yes, you may.
Sure.
And obviously, just to talk about how we engineered this or that, I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of work to put into the site to look at what we can, you know, fit, and stormwater and parking and layouts and utilities, and just all that in a very short amount of time in order to make this deadline also through the pandemic and whatnot. So it's been a bit of a challenge, but I will say just a couple things, is that, number one, when we first started laying this out, the whole thing about the path, like, we were led to believe like it wasn't a consideration. So it wasn't until after our plans were submitted and done that we found it came back. So, like, our hope would be that, you know, obviously, the applicant's, you know, hope would be that it's not there from a liability standpoint, but, so to say that we haven't engineered it for the path, well, we didn't really know we were engineering for a path. If we had known that all absolutely has to be there, then yes, we would adjust that east property line. As far as so the building code for business for an office is 1 per 100. So if it's 20 people, we can get that in 3,000 square feet. So 20 to 25,000, or 15 to 20,000 square foot office, yes, that would be more employees than I think Ron would ever have from an office standpoint. But that's, to be honest, we talked about an office component there, whether that's a single story or maybe a partial mezzanine. But knowing what his office has had, the staff that they've had, Ron can speak to it for the number of growth that they might have, but I don't envision that this is 100 office people and 100 warehouse people showing up.
Right.
And for that amount, for 15 to 20 office people, we can fit that in 2,500 square feet if we really wanted to, and amply. As you mentioned, I think somebody just said one per 1,000 feet. I mean, that's huge for an office. So, again, from the parking standpoint, based on a lot of its shift work, and then the office component, I think we can address that with the design as well.
Right.
Plus, that-
Here's the problem, right? So like, here's the problem, is that we don't know what we have. You said you could be this, or it could be that, but we don't know. And we're gonna have to make an approval, or a recommendation for approval to the trustees on something we don't know, right? So you see where I'm sitting right now? I mean, I'm trying to do the right thing for everyone here, right? How far along is your engineering? Like, are you guys how far along are you?
We've submitted what was required for the preliminary development plan.
Okay, so like, I kind of know the process, so how much, okay, let me ask it this way. How much more time do you need to get a better grip on your engineering design?
For like engineering from the site or for architecturally?
Engineering.
Whatever the next step in the preliminary development process, that's what we were planning for. I think the next submission was in June, so we were ready to, whatever that next step
Okay,
would be to take the.
so let me ask it this way. Have you done a survey out there yet?
We've been working off the as-built surveys. We haven't done any surveys there.
So you're working off of,
The Alta
you're
surveys that
working
we've been
off of
provided.
GIS?
We've been provided with other Alta surveys from the seller, from what they had. We've worked
Okay.
off of those.
Okay, all right,
And from what we've also gotten from Butler County.
okay.
Butler County Engineers Office.
Okay. Okay. So you're pretty early on in the stages of things.
I mean,
Like 30 days, you're not going to have anything of woody substance, or we will.
we can have it, whatever is required. When we started out, we discussed with Ron and Tim, probably, I don't know, early March, right, when all this started. We jumped in and we had a schedule of meetings, and they kind of got pushed a little bit because in-phase meetings went away. So we adjusted, but I can't tell you the man hours. We put a lot of man hours to get to where we are now. Our goal was to go through the preliminary development plan to the final development plan, go in for zoning. If Ron gave the blessing, that we could go for zoning in August, I think, building permit September, get concrete in the ground in October, and get this building up if Ron said go. Then you know what happened, and so now we're maybe looking at next year, who knows? But our next steps would be, yes, take the comments to say, okay, we gotta think about how this pipe works, and we've gotta really find out whether or not this grading, this path can work. Ron asked, how much soil are we gonna have to import? We're gonna have a lot of import here. My engineer right now is running the numbers so we can come back with those numbers. From my
We
standpoint,
have a neighbor that needs to get rid of some.
from my standpoint, the next step is to say, all right, Ron, like, how much office are we talking about right now? Or is it a possibility that from day one, we're 100% warehouse, and we shell it out, that we can build a future mezzanine inside and add, for us, it was consideration to show that architecturally, we want to make this an office presence, an office look and feel to be sympathetic and appropriate for what's already been, and what's been constructed there and is going up. So the answer is yes and no. No, we haven't laid out an office concept, but we've done 3 or 4 projects for Ron in the last several years, and we can very quickly turn something around that, based on what his wishes are, to say that, yes, I want to put something in, or no, I just want to do warehouse.
All right. So let me try it this way. In 30 days, could you come up with an idea on how the path can work? And can you also come up with some kind of like plan or attempt to look at off-site access or off-site parking or have a better, I mean, you get where I'm going with this a little bit? Is 30 days enough? 60 days, what do you need? What do you need? It's kind of where I was trying to get the answer to.
Well, first of all, this piece of property, I think it's asking a lot to put a path through there, because first of all, some of this property goes into 747. Okay? It's, and, which was the original design. Then on top of that, now you want to put, I have to put a bike or whatever kind of path in, and then I have to put up barriers for the buildings next door to the north. And it's cutting away a lot of the property, you know, on the site. So what you're asking me is, yeah, it's, to be honest with you, it's kind of, you know, troublesome, because this is not cheap property, and I think everybody knows in Westchester, usually the property is not very cheap. So you're taking away a good, I want to get 400,000 square feet on this property. And, I mean, I can sink the office, tuck it back into the warehouse portion and leave the glass frontage. And, you know, I still have 10,000 square feet of office over on Union Center Drive that I can deal with too. But I can guarantee you, if you want 183 spaces on this, forget it. Forget it, I won't do it. And I say that because I know that half of them are gonna be empty most of the time. You know, where we're at now, we've asked for reductions because, you know, we have parking spaces available, and I have 130 people.
Right.
But to put in 183 spaces, you know, it's going to be way overkill.
Right.
And I would rather cut down on the office space and get the square footage on the distribution.
Have you investigated shared parking with any of the surrounding property owners that would work, or no?
Well, I didn't think that would even happen,
Yeah.
and he's sitting right here, Mr. North Point. And I'm sure, you know, I don't know if Tim, were there any concessions on the parking spaces for North Point?
No, they're actually overparked.
They're overparked.
Yes.
Huh, okay. So they might have spaces available.
Correct.
But they would want
That's what I was
to
kind of
work out some kind of lease.
That's what I was kind of hinting at when I said that the surrounding industrial is actually overparked. So you could pursue an easement agreement.
Yeah, if they're overparked, they might be agreeable to some
Because
accommodation.
what we look at is if whoever you contract with, they need to be overparked in order to grant those spaces to you. Because we won't allow them to take a reduction, so you get your requirement.
Ron, just asking an obvious question that'll come up probably at some point. Does it have to be 400 square feet? Can you live with 380 or 360, or, you know, is it absolutely critical to the function of your company to have that footprint?
Every square footage is critical.
Yeah, yeah.
And the reason I say that's just not a statement, it's a reality. Every square footage, you know, will eventually be utilized.
Yeah, I know your company's growing, I'm aware of that, so.
And that's why we wanted to have it all in one facility, because right now, if I had land available, you know, I would just keep building further
Where you're at,
west
right.
where I'm at, but I'm out of property, so.
Right.
You know, I want to try to get as close to 400,000 as I can. But if you cut back one section of Tilda, what would that, how many square foot would that take out?
Like a second on the top.
You know, say if you came north back one section,
I mean, typically our panels are 12 foot, so I think that's, I mean, you're talking for every foot.
12 by 200.
Yeah.
25,000 square feet.
How many square feet would that be?
I'd have to check what we've got there, but it could be for every, we tried to maximize it from the square footage as an unlimited area building, which allows us reduction down to 40 feet from the property line. Obviously, we follow any side and rear and front yard setbacks. But also then now we have to get the fire lane through. You know, for every foot that you take off, depending on which side you're looking at, you can be looking at potentially thousands of feet or 1,000 feet.
1,000
Square
feet per
footage.
foot?
Yeah, I mean, just depending on how you're massaging and pushing the building. I mean, you know, our intent, you know, our desire, Ron's desire is to build from a square footage standpoint what you have there. Now, to that point, like, when we first looked at this site, we looked at the surrounding areas, the storm detention ponds that were out there, the size of those, and don't get Ron started on storm ponds. But I looked at several options on, because the first thing was just like, how many square feet can I get? And the first thing that we did was we put a 4-acre pond on the site, 4 or 5 acre pond. And once you just get into that, plus then having to have your fire access drive and everything else that goes with it, you know, you're down to 330 or 350,000 square feet, which for the value of the land and what you can build and then maintain, is not worth it. So that's why we looked at the underground storage, the parking again for the warehouse use and the small office use. Again, similar, as Ron mentioned, we've done a reduction at the Union Center property. But you know, again, we're trying to show the max of what we can, you know, what is desired. If, to your point, if there's a foot here or there that allows the path to come through, you know, when we first set out this height, we weren't anticipating walking paths coming through.
I mean, if we can get more parking, you know, somewhere, I mean, we'll try to work in more, we'll look at it. And my goal would be to try to get 400,000 square feet.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just looking at options on
Do you
how we
think in
solve the
30
problem.
days you'd have something that we could better sink our teeth into? Should we kick the can down the road for 30 days?
30 enough, or you need 60?
I mean, I could have it to you Friday. I mean, really, I mean, I could turn around extremely quickly. I mean, like I said, my engineer's already looking at how we get that path through.
What about the drain situation,
Yeah, we
with
can-
pipe, all that?
We can find a resolution to that. I can't, as the architect, I'll just go back to my civil guy and we'll look at that pipe and make sure we have something that meets the letter of the law. But really, it comes down to the parking. Again, what we've got is similar to what Ron's got now, which is when you come in, what we try to do is have truck stacking would be to the left, and they've got basically an exit only so they can pull straight out, not affect that main drive, and then all your car parking to the right, which is that dead end with the turnaround. We could potentially push that a little bit to the east and maybe gain a few more spaces, but the only real way to gain, say, 20 or 30 more spaces is to take that south wall of the building and push it and then create a true parking field, you know, per se, which is from just an engineering standpoint, we're talking probably going from 400 to 370.
Or talk to your neighbor about possibly leasing spaces.
Yeah.
He's shaking his head no back there, so I'm not sure if that's
You know-
going anywhere.
Excuse me, one thing I wanted to say, even though, you know, I said we may push this off until next year, is that I have a contract on this property.
Yep, I understand
And
that.
I have to do my due diligence after we get this approval.
Understand that.
So I have to get the geotechnicals, the ALTAs done and everything else. So, you know, it would probably put a time crunch to go 60 days. And I think Dave said we could have something in 30 days.
30,
That's
it sounds
cool.
like you can turn around.
If you-
pretty
yeah,
quick.
My
there's- I
question
mean, I
is,
understand there's
will
a-
we know anything though on the bike path or the whatever before then? I mean, so we can look at what we need to do to make changes.
Right. What are you
Yes.
trying to say? I mean, what are you trying, I mean, like,
He wants to get rid of the bike
Well,
path.
yeah, just to get rid of it entirely, right? come back
Well,
and tell
I
us
just,
how.
again, I just don't know where you're gonna go. If you go over there and look, you know, and there's that cellular tower there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'd almost have to build a side portion to go across the creek. Because my understanding, Tim, isn't the bike path or whatever supposed to be on the other side of the creek, closest to the road?
So the reason why I advise the access from Brake Drive at your entranceway is because North Point has an 8-foot concrete path on the south side of their Brake Drive, which will come up and then go south that extends down Union Center.
Yeah, it's supposed to go down to the railroad tracks?
So that 8-foot path runs all along the south side of Brake Drive. And were you guys here for the last case? So on the last case that North Point had, there's a connection to the residential over there to the west where Casanelli's property was that I spoke to. So it extends from the residential path along Brake Drive, and then it'll go south to Union Center. Now, what I spoke about earlier was the trustees approved a grant which would extend from Beckett Ridge all the way down to Smith Road, north of where the car wash and the gas station is. And the last connection would be your property and those two properties north of you. So that's why you're a big part of that connection. So that's why I've advised to require the connection.
So basically what Ron is asking is will the commission waive the sidewalk? That's basically what you're asking. And,
But if it can't be designed, it can't be designed. We've got precedents in past cases that have said exactly that. There's been precedents.
I'd like to hear from our county engineer rather than the applicant's engineer on how that can be designed though.
Also, I would like to know, I mean, I guess if I was you, I'm a small business owner myself, what just glares out at me is we're trying to drop a public type of bike path, because it's gonna be public,
Correct.
right?
Right.
We're gonna be encouraging people to be flying down this sidewalk, families and people biking and running, and it's gonna be on this gentleman's property. Now,
It's
like,
not. It's outside the right of way and on private property.
on private property. So it will be on private property. So my question would be, if somebody will get hurt. Something probably will happen, it's an accident. Who's liable for that?
Well, and
I
that's.
don't know if you know that, you should know.
I can look into it and I can give you an opinion on it. I don't want to say anything off the cuff because I've never run into that issue before, but I'm happy to draft an opinion and give it to you guys.
Yeah, I just don't want to drop something on somebody that,
I'm not an attorney, but I can almost tell you, I mean, if I have to build it and I have to maintain it, then if somebody gets hurt on it, who are they gonna go after? It's on my
100%,
property
yeah.
and I build it, but, so,
How many other properties have we put bike paths on private property? I thought
Every
it's
PUD I've been involved with, we've required connections.
and a PUD. Got it. In the PUD.
There's an overall connections plan that the township adopted back in 2013.
Right.
So if the trustees didn't feel like they didn't want connections, they wouldn't have adopted it.
I assume when you write your opinion, you could write an opinion on the liability aspect of it, and if there's any way to buffer that or
Sure,
minimize
absolutely.
it for the owner.
Gentlemen, the other thing I want to make very clear here is that we're just a sounding board, right? We don't make decisions, we just make recommendations. There's 3 people that make a recommendation in this township, and that's the trustees. So, I mean, this isn't the end either, right? You know what I'm saying? If you got 30 days, I'd say you come back with some better plans and some better profiles maybe of that land through there. And,
I think it'll help us,
it'll
help
help
you
us
at the next
immensely.
level.
I understand.
Okay.
The only thing I'll say is, when we submitted, there was no path, so the yellow line there was added to the plans after the fact that we submitted, so if
Okay.
a month and a half ago, we started the process, just to address how much time we put in and how much we engineered it, like, we've engineered it and put a lot of effort in. If I had known that there was a path in, we would come in and said, here's where the path's gonna go, and here's how we're doing the grade. The fact that when we submitted, there was no path.
Yeah,
So to say that we haven't addressed the path, that's because.
we didn't know, yeah, got it.
You didn't know about the
Fair
path?
Yeah.
A month and a half ago, you didn't know about it? Nothing about the path?
No, well, we knew about the path, when Ron and I, we had a discussion, and we were told that we had to do the path, and we started down that road for about a couple of weeks, and then we were told that we would not do the path, so we're like, great.
Who
And
told
so,
you
and
that-
so,
who-
and
who
so,
said it? Who
so
said
the,
that?
so the confusion came when the connections plan, the 2013 adoption didn't show the path through the property. But after receiving comments from my director and our roads and services director, that we wanted the connection through the property because of the grant that we were awarded and the future plans for Smith Road, is when they got the later comment. So our review goes in stages. We had the initial pre-application meeting where we had the discussion about the connections plan, okay? And then after I sent out a request for comments on the plans from other departments and agencies, that's when I received comments and was advised to, advise the applicant that we were gonna require the connection.
Hey, Tim, just a question. When we originally talked, you thought that they might run it down by the apartments or something and come in the back way to the bike path.
Correct.
You-
We're
you
gonna
thought
have
the
the, we're gonna,
connection
we're
would
gonna
be
have the
gone that
connection
way.
that North Point's providing on Brake Drive. But I was also advised to request the connection along 747 as well. Because the plan for, the overall connection plan ties into this property as well.
Wait, so 2 connection points that go into one?
So if I go back to the vicinity map,
Is there any chance you got the full connection plan available?
I do.
The
I have the comprehensive land use, the hard copy that I can pass around to you.
thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay. So these are the apartments.
Right.
There's another residential district over here on the other side that Brake Drive's connection will connect to.
I've seen that.
It runs up to Smith Road. Smith Road stops right there,
Yep.
the path, or right there. So these commercial properties and then all of Smith Road up to Beckett Ridge, we have a grant approved for and a plan to connect. This property would be the last connection, which we think the grant will allow us to connect to Smith Road and down through these properties. And this would be our last connection because North Point's given us this and then all the way down to Union Center on their frontage.
Wow.
Okay. Okay,
So it's the bike path.
so 30 days.
Yeah, I think it's
the
to
bike
your
path.
benefit if we come back in 30 days. I know it's a pain, you guys would rather get it done, but I think it'll help us help you to make our recommendation to the trustee.
Well, I just have a question. If there's a grant given to run it all the way down there, why don't you see if you can get another grant to run it the rest of the way down?
Tim?
Rather than ask me to do it. I'm a private individual. Why should I have to do something public?
It happens all the time. When you do private developments, it happens all the time. You have to widen roads, you have to put sidewalks in. It's just how the government gets things built. I mean, Mr. McElroy would, as a developer, a seasoned developer, would be, I'm sure, agree wholeheartedly with my comments there. I understand you feel like you're getting a raw deal, but that's just it. I mean, it's just it. All right. First of
Yeah,
all,
no
have a-
offense to North Point, but they're using other people's money, where I'm a private owner, so.
For the record, we had to
We had investors.
fund the shortfall for the improvements with our own. We paid for the orders.
Let's try to limit the public comment a little bit, just for the applicant for now, since we're in deliberations.
Sorry. Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Carly.
So do we need a motion to extend this for 30 days? Table it for 30 days or whatever terminology?
Good? 30 good? Get what we need?
Can
30's good,
I
right?
clarify now, or just with Tim separately, of like specifically what needs to be addressed in that 30 days? I mean, the path and parking?
Path and parking.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Path, parking, and
And that
drainage,
gives you enough
right?
date, that gives you enough time on your due diligence, right? That still gives you enough time with your due diligence? Your due diligence period?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
I think we're talking
I mean-
path, parking, and drainage, right? And maybe that's a small piece of it, but that's part of it, right?
You can always plunk down more money on your due diligence and extend the deadline. I got a smile on my face underneath this. I got a smile on my face. I'm
Well,
kidding.
that's the other thing, but then.
I know.
You know, because of the virus and everything, everything's been extended out. I mean, we signed this contract, and I've only got 6 months. And we signed it back in like February or March. I
Get
can't
it.
remember the exact date, so.
I get it. That's why I'm asking the dates, making sure you're good on that. Yep, I get it.
With that 30 calendar date, can I clarify, like, when will we be submitting to come back?
I can answer that question.
Third Monday next month?
I can answer that question. Our next meeting is June 15th at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, so let me clarify, our submission deadline was today, but we will extend that for the applicant.
Okay.
Well, actually, they do, they'll just need to send me revisions on a continuance of this case.
Yeah, as long as they send continuous updates,
Right.
just, and then we'll have something. Yeah, we'll have something for our next meeting. Cool?
Staff, you have, well, you will allow, variation on the width of the bike path, right?
Correct, and, you know, we would ask that they meet all the county's requirements as far as the safety standards. So if there is, you know, if the county requires, safety fencing on a certain drop in grade, that be installed as well.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can you pull up the drawing with the yellow path on it? So, we briefly discussed this prior. Is there a reason it has to come along 747, or could it go around the back of the building?
Go ahead and
As
step
long
in
as
front of the
we exactly-
microphone for me.
Get in front of the microphone.
Sorry.
No problem. Go ahead.
Is there any reason that it has to come down 747 between the building and the road, or could it come around the backside of the building? As long as it connects back out to Brate?
Yeah, it could.
Because we got asphalt going on the north side and the west side already.
Yeah, we would just ask you to
Get creative.
stripe it as a lane.
We could, yeah, we've, that road, I mean, that road is for fire access only, so it would be gated from the public in general, but we could maybe make it a little bit bigger to get the bike path through, and it would just make not having to deal with the river and the ravine and the grade and the fall on the street there.
Is there any issues with him doing that, Tim?
No, actually, you know, we spoke about using the fire access lane as the path because they had to put it in anyway, so. It was just getting too bright, you know, I didn't see the option for it with the trucks going around the west side. But yeah, if you can do that, it would
Okay.
just have to be delineated, you know, striped or,
Sure.
yeah.
All right, very good. I think these are things that you two can talk offline about.
Yep.
Very good. All right, great. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Okay, I will make a motion to table, or I guess I'm not supposed to use that language, am I? We did this once before. What, Carly?
A motion to continue.
Motion to continue?
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to continue.
That's it, Stem.
Okay, hold on, please. Thank you. Case ZMA 04-20, Break 2, Republic Wire, for 30 days or till our next June meeting.
I'll
Do I have a
second. I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. The question is to table ZMA 04-20, Break 2, Republic Wire. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hahn,
Yes?
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Wyden,
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Okay.
We need to save our packet for next.
It has been continued.
It'll be revised.
Okay, we have no administrative matters, communications, miscellaneous business. Our next meeting is Monday, June 15th at 6 PM. This will serve as public notice of that meeting. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Question is on the adjournment of the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.